Hello, I am Bujar Hoxha. I'm a country director for Care International in Lebanon. I am talking from Beirut live, a city that has been rocked by two massive explosions 1 year ago, exactly on 4th of August, 6:07 minutes. 12 months after, we still see the scars within the Lebanese people and within the city itself. People feel that there was just this 1 year long nightmare for Lebanese and a city undergoing through this devastated effect that the city had. We should not forget Beirut had a lot of hardships throughout many decades, over many decades. There were many civil wars. The city has been divided many times in the past. However, there was no such a devastating destruction as the one on 4th of August. So we had over 214 people that were killed by the blast itself. We had 6,500 people that were injured by the blast itself. And then we had over 300,000 people that were displaced by the massive explosion that took over in the city itself. Today, 1 year after, out of this 300,000 people that were displaced, only 30%, so less than 100,000 of them, have returned to their homes, to their place of origin, mainly due to their anxiety and due to their psychological trauma that they face. So while today we commemorate the victims, the injured people, we also at the same time we pay the respects to people who have had to go through a lot of healing process and psychosocial processes throughout all this 1 year period. Before I go on about the care and what we do and mandate itself, let me share my personal story as Bujar, as a person who lived throughout all this explosion. So I happen to be just 1 kilometer away from the port itself. So we cannot go now because you will see it's very crowded with all the people trying to commemorate, and there are a lot of people that have different reasons to be around this part of the city. But I was on my right side. It was very close. I'm very lucky. It's like a second chance in life to be here with all of you virtually or physically with some of you here. Is that I had a dentist appointment. It's an ironic story, by 6 o'clock p.m. at this time last year. And it just happened. I had to make a choice whether I take the stairs to go to the second floor or I take the elevator. So I took the stairs. And within a couple of minutes there was explosion after an explosion, so two in a row. And then I took the exit stairs and went out, and what I saw was devastating because it was a lot of people shouting, crying for help, a lot of blood throughout the streets, a lot of glasses that we had to walk through. and I was trying to do as much as possible in terms of offering the first aid back then. And while doing so, my mind was back in the family. I wanted to make sure to tell them that I'm safe. But before I did so, my wife, Blerta, she called me. I have two children, Aden, son, and Arita, the daughter. She called me and she said, all three of us, we are safe, but the home, the apartment is completely damaged. And I couldn't make the sense of it because where I was sitting was 1 kilometer away, and the apartment is 3.5 kilometers away from it. So it was not making any sense. So at that time, we didn't know really what was happening. So I had to do all this walk of 3.5 kilometers. And these are the stairs I had to walk through. So we'll walk them together soon. And while I was doing so, I was thinking what to expect next. Probably the most emotional moment for me was when I reached to the apartment, and I explained what happened in between my way to the apartment. Is that when I saw, I'm just waiting for this noise to pass. When I saw my son and my daughter, they hugged me, but at the same time they burst into tears at that moment. So tears, they were both tears of joy, but they were also tears of just being frightened from what happened. So anyway, it's important to acknowledge what did we do as kids. So while I was having again this walk simultaneously, I was having a constant communication with the Care Lebanon team. And this is what we call a communication tree. So we were trying to make sure that everybody is safe and sound. So everybody was okay. And once we established that everybody was safe and sound, within the first hours we had the first senior leadership team meeting. And then that's where we decided that this time there is no room to cry, or there is no time to cry. Let's just try to respond to what Lebanese people and the Beiruti people need at this instance. So what we did is that right away we decided the first intervention measures, which included food, non-food items, because we were still talking about the COVID interventions, anti-COVID interventions. And then within the first hours, we were there with the Beiruti, Lebanese people and other people that live within Lebanon. And we were trying to do our best in terms of responding, in terms of helping them on how to cope with this unexpected disaster back then. I must say that just for the audience to know, there is a mass that is taking place just very in close proximity, so I have to be very kind of, you can also listen to me, so I cannot move really until they finish. Just so you know what's happening within Beirut and Lebanon itself, it's like if you look at within Beirut, there has been quite a lot of structural repair, quite a lot of assistance in terms of rehabilitating shelters, in terms of rehabilitating homes, infrastructure and all that. However, we are talking about the country that is going a massive socioeconomic crisis. We are talking about a country that is going crisis that they have not seen that for over a century. So you have shortages in food, you have shortages in medicine, you have shortages in different basic necessities, supplies. You have shortages in electricities. The minimum wage has hit rock bottom. It's around $29 per month, which is more than twice lower than. I'm just gonna wait for this noise to pass. So at least twice lower than what's the minimum wage within Afghanistan, for example. So you're talking about once high middle income country now facing really very dire circumstances and very difficult to deal with. In addition of the scarcity or shortages in supplies and goods, there is a massive brain drain that is taking place. You talk about somewhere between 2,000 to 2,200 doctors that have fled the country over the last 6 months, that they have moved to different countries within Western Europe, within Canada, US. We also face the service shortages, especially with the human resources. So many expertise like doctors, different pharmacists, teachers, they are fleeing the country. And they are fleeing the country massively if they have the opportunity, or the ones that they didn't flee, a lot of them, they plan to do so, which is quite worrisome, because then even if you secure the supplies and goods, how do you keep the key resources within the country? So there's a massive brain drain that is taking over Lebanon, which is quite worrying. And how do we deal with it? And then you have specific issues around electricity, power. You have sometimes power cuts of 23 hours within 24. So it means that you have only 1 hour electricity. So if you have a small private business, it's very difficult to sustain that within 1 hour of electricity. So the only other way to sustain that is you have to increase substantially the payment for the private generators, which would mean increasing the production costs, and many small businesses are unable to do that. Many medium businesses are unable to do that, so you have a lot of job losses or job shortages. Who gets most affected? Well, the most affected usually, they're diverse, but I would distinguish here the girls. I would distinguish the girls because many of them, when I speak to them in the field, when we meet them in the field, you get to see that a lot of them get impacted, and many of them are worried that they are not able to continue their education. They are not able to enroll in the schools. Their families are not able to afford that. And it's same with the women. If you look at the statistics, there are much more women that have lost their jobs in comparison to men. It's not that to underestimate the job losses within the male community, but there's a big difference. And then there is, of course, due to the lot of negative coping mechanisms, a lot of GBV, gender-based violence, increases. And I'm saying all this because CARE's mandate, so to say, is to save lives. And that's our imperative. And that's what we did within the first hours of Beirut response. We responded in shelter, we responded in food, we responded in non-food, we responded in psychosocial well-being, we responded with everything we had in our locker, and we will continue to do so. Whether it's a Beirut explosion, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a bigger socioeconomic crisis, that's our mandate, and that's what CARE stands for. So yes, care packages are life-saving for many families within the Lebanon, and it means a lot. The donations that people provide throughout the world, they make a massive difference for people throughout Lebanon itself. If we look at the different needs, I mean, we covered quite a lot in terms of the food, in terms of the medicine, in terms of what is expected out there. What we are really worried as CARE is that there is a bit of that status quo in terms of looking at the Lebanon crisis per se. And in that aspect, we really strongly encourage international community. First of all, we thank them for the compassion and the support that they have provided throughout the first year. It proven to be it made a lot of difference for people here in Lebanon, and we hope they continue to provide this assistance, and we hope to scale up and to provide more assistance, in particular to women and girls. So make sure that there are no lost generations for girls, that there are equal opportunities for women, that there is equal assistance for all communities. And we shouldn't forget, this is a country that hosts around for every fourth inhabitant there is one refugee, so it hosts around 20%, over 20% of the country is populated with refugees, mostly with the Syrians, but then there is also Palestinians and other migrant workers, so that's quite important, and I hope they take into consideration the fact of this massive exodus that we have of the professional expert people from different sectors, because that would impact quite a lot the country, and it would impact the migration as well. So yeah, I mean, I hope international community really pays attention to Lebanon. It's quite a critical country. It's stunning, beautiful in terms of diversity, but it's having a total economic collapse, and you have more than 54.7% of people falling below poverty line. So it's quite a serious humanitarian crisis, a new one. Unique in that sense, because it's not a conflict, it's not a natural disaster, but it's a governance and economic crisis. And in that note, I would really like to thank each and every one of you. I'm just gonna wait for the noise to end, because this is important. I really want to thank each and every one of you. Many foundations out there, many organizations that are supporting CARE in providing this relief and providing this assistance within Lebanon. And if you please click on the bar, you will see the instructions there how to donate to CARE. It makes a massive difference for a lot of girls, for a lot of women, for a lot of communities here in Lebanon. So I hope even your symbolic donations would make that. So I hope you find a spare moment to do so, and thank you very much for listening and for your attention throughout this time. Bye.